You are listening
You are listening
You're listening to
to Not
Not Elsewhere
Elsewhere Classified.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Not Elsewhere Classified podcast. I am deciding to do intros on video and also translate them into audio for the podcast. So again, welcome to the podcast. Today in the podcast, I have Danita Ruszkowski from Integrity Coding. If you are new to the podcast, welcome. I highly suggest you listen to our first conversation with me and Danita back in 2017. It'll give you a baseline of where she was when she started Integrity Coding, and I caught up with her 4 years later to find out that her company has grown a lot. So this is a two-part conversation. So for this week, we really try and catch up. What's been going on for the past 4 years? I refer to a YouTube video that she has, and so please also check out our YouTube channel where she talks about her motto, teach one, show one, do one. And overall, the interview session was kind of revolving around that. And we talk all over the place. So without further ado, please enjoy the first part of my interview with Danita Ruszkowski. Enjoy. Welcome, everybody, to the Not Elsewhere Classified podcast. And today on the podcast, I bring back a guest from 4 years ago. I'm looking at the date, November 6th, 2007.
That's my wedding anniversary.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So today in the podcast, we have Danita Ruszkowski. Danita, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks, Brian. How are you?
Good. And so she is from Integrity Coding. And the last time we talked about, I think you were in the process of just getting it started, getting it rolling. And
Right.
we were just talking earlier. And I'm like, boy, you since those 4 years, you've really taken the reins of Integrity Coding and moved it forward. And I was just mentioning earlier that you've also moved to YouTube. And even before that, you were doing like Facebook Lives, promoting your free courses. I mean, everybody loves free. It's just an introductory course, of course, that leads into better courses by you and your staff. I was just listening to this video. I'm like, oh, either me or one of my instructors. I'm like, excuse me, you expanded.
Very much so. Thank God. Yeah.
I'm sure, because you can't do it by yourself. Because I know once you start doing it by yourself, it can get overwhelming, and then you have to realize, like, okay, I need some help. So it's good to see you that you're growing. I love that you're on YouTube. I love that you're using YouTube to market into your core services, and that's great. So today we are going to catch up, just like what we did with Charlita over the past 4 years, because she was one of my first guests, the first season guest in 2017. So we might as well catch up. This would be the Sequelae episode that I've been labeling for people coming back. So Danita, what's been going on since the last time we chatted on the podcast?
Well, Brian, actually a lot. And I'm very, very thankful for that. So Integrity Coding has grown tremendously.
Great.
So I think the last time I saw you, I was already certified for sure. So now I'm a CPCI. I'm certified in OBGYN.
Right. Okay.
And so I'm also studying for another credential, which I'm not going to mention yet. I really love cardiology.
Good.
So if that gives you any hint. So we're still keeping it right now to outpatient coding, but we do have an instructor coming on with us where we will be going to teach inpatient coding.
Wonderful.
One of my instructors is studying for that. Since then, we have taken on, we have 4 or 5 instructors now, 2 of which are nurses.
Wow.
So one of them is our daughter. So our youngest daughter is a critical care nurse here at a major Boston hospital.
Good.
And she does, cardiovascular, thoracic. And she has taken on the introduction to anatomy and physiology.
Oh, good.
And the reason I like her teaching that, it's twofold, not just because she's my daughter, but because she's got a lot of hands-on clinical, well, maybe it's because she's my daughter, but she's got a lot of clinical experience And when you talk to somebody, it's one thing being a coder, but it's another thing, like when you have nurses that are also coders, they have a lot of great clinical background. And that makes the codes come to life.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah. So when she's talking about her thoracic surgery, maybe she's talking about VATS or, her cabbages. She can go into detail about that. And the students, when you, instead of just talking like this and you go, and then the students like, so you want to bring life to it because, coding really can be fun. If you make it fun for the students, you have to grasp that learning style of the students so that they remember it and can apply it. Other than that, it's just words, and words without meaning and understanding really have no meaning.
Correct. I agree.
So it's great. So now we teach medical billing. We teach medical coding. I just hired an instructor, Christina Harris, and she's teaching our auditing course, and she's great. I sat in on one of her classes. We offer free classes before we get into the real courses, which is what you saw us advertising on YouTube. So we do, and it's coming up again, everybody. We're offering another 5-week free course. It's coming up.
Wow.
And we do this, we do it for the benefit because everybody says, oh yeah, I want to get into coding. It's great. And it is great. Even after these years, it's still such a great profession. Because it offers not only a great income once you're certified and experienced, but the flexibility. If you can produce the work and know what you're doing, you will be valuable to a practice. Yep. So coding. I was
just mentioning last episode is that I just realized I'm in my 20th year of healthcare, and it doesn't feel like 20 years. So when you mentioned that, like being a medical coder or working with medical coding, even in my 20th year, because somebody told me like, hey, 20 years ago, I did this. I'm like, excuse me, this was 20 years ago. And I'm like, wait, I'm approaching, like this year is my 20th year. And I'm like, wait a second. It doesn't feel like it. Only because. You know why? Why?
Go ahead. Because healthcare, as long as there's going to be people, Brian, there's going to be healthcare. And healthcare never stays the same.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, we've seen it now with COVID.
That's what I said.
Would we have thought 20 years ago we would have seen COVID and how things have changed and the protocols? And so evolving, it's constantly changing.
That's what
if you're staying up to date.
Yep, that's it. Because there's like for me, my answer was, I'm still learning. Like I feel like I haven't learned enough, and because I haven't learned enough, I still need to do more. And that's why at 20 years, in the field, like I still feel like I'm a beginner because I'm still learning. When you're still learning and feeling like you have a student mentality as a professional, you'll always want to strive for more.
Definitely. Yeah. So one of the other courses that we just launched last year was risk adjustment. Risk adjustment is really hot.
Wow.
And so the instructor, 4 of my instructors are former students.
Oh, amazing.
And so one of them in particular, who's been with me the longest, Erin, hello, Erin. She has really become like such a part of integrity coding. And I told her, she's like, you're the second part of my coding brain because she thinks like me. She teaches like me. And the students have really taken to her. Good. So we offer risk adjustment now, and she's awesome with ICD-10 coding. So she's really, really good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So I've seen you've been expanding like a lot. So what let me ask this question. What made you, or when did you feel from 2017 up until now, between then, when did you feel like you needed to expand? When did you feel like you needed all of these new instructors to bring in more people to help you expand your own business?
So, as a coder and as a business person, you're in service and your job is to serve your customers. And what's out there right now, coding is where it starts. And that's really my favorite, is teaching the coding. But there's more than that now. Risk adjustment is very big because now things are based a lot on diagnoses. And so that's going to drive revenue, right?
Right.
And so what's going on out there, you have to be adaptable to it, and you have to be resourceful. And really, it was a doctor who became a coder, and she is the one that said this to me. She said, the sky's the limit once you get certified. And it's just the truth. If practices need risk adjustment, then we as instructors and business men and women need to be able to provide that, train students so that they can do it. And the other answer is, why not? Why not? If people are out there and know, because you don't know everything. I can cook really, really good Italian food, but I'm not really a great cook with other things. So I need somebody else to come in and say, hey, can you show me how to do this? Or, hey, do you want to take that portion of the meal? So there's a big meal out there that needs to be had. It needs to be based in nutrition, so to speak. And I'm using parables here.
Yeah.
You have to be able to provide that meal so that people are satisfied and nourished, and then can go out and do what they need to do. If you're not nourished, you're not going to have the ability to go out and do other things and serve other people.
I agree. It's like a potluck, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. There's just a lot out there. And the older I get, I don't want to stop learning. I just don't want to stop. And coding is one of those things. You don't want to stay stagnant, because if you stay stagnant, you're going to stay behind. You can't afford to do that in healthcare and in coding because of the way things are changing. You have to be able to adapt and produce the work.
And so what's been going on since then? So you've grew your company. What else has been happening since the last time we did our podcast?
So I think the first time I spoke with you, we only had one grandchild. And now we're on grandchild number 8.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And that was really the driving force. In coding, when I'm talking to my students, we use the term, this is going to drive the code decision. So my grandchildren is what has driven my decision to become certified.
That's what you mentioned in the last podcast. Yep.
Yeah. And that is still my driving force. As I said, earlier, right now I have one of my grandchildren here. So I have like a sister is here helping me. So that is my driving force in staying active, keeping my business going, because being able to be available for them and helping with them and helping where need be, whether it be financially or personally, I want to be able to do that. Coding offers that. Years ago, and I might have said in the last podcast, but years ago, my previous pastor said something. It was at Christmas time. And he said, how many of us, it came Christmas time and we said, geez, I wish I could help so-and-so. Well, you know what? You can't give what you don't have. And when you become certified, not only is that going to, once you get experience, of course, that's going to increase your ability to make more money so that you not only help you, but you help others. Who would not want it to be, somebody in need? Maybe they need their rent paid, bills paid. A single mom needs a car, help with that. How great would it be to say, you know what? I've got that. I can help you out with that. It's those things. Becoming certified gives you that ability to it's not just about helping you. It's about helping others.
That's right. That's
and
right.
I believe that.
I think like when it's going into a discussion about paying it forward, right? So like if you have a certain skill, if you have something, like for myself, like podcasting, setting up, a podcasting thingy, doing YouTube and stuff like that. I think it's very important to take what you have learned and then share it. It's like what you were talking about here in your video. Show one, teach one, do one, but also share it as well. I think that's most important, because when you pay it forward to other people, it only just makes I guess for me, when I first started podcasting, people came to me like, okay, how do you start a podcast? I'm like, okay, just send me email, give me a call. I will tell you the basics on how to do it. And there have been people who just kind of ran with it and away with it and created their own podcast. And now they're thinking about creating a YouTube channel. And I think this is, to me, and you've done it too. You've done your own YouTube channel as well. And you're carrying, I just saw the one for July. And to me, it's like, this is the newest thing. And I'm going to go back to 2020 because, in the pandemic, everybody was home. I mean, how are you going to market yourself if you're not going to a in-person conference? And that was the usual way of getting yourself out there. You go to a conference, you attend the sessions, but then when you're in the little, vendor center, you just kind of in between sessions, you would meet people, have, and outside the sessions, you would have like, meetups and stuff like that. And you would just connect from there. That's the old way. But then when 2020 hit and all of that got canceled, I mean, a lot for me was canceled. HIMSS, I was supposed to speak at AAPC, my first, my first national conference. And then AHIMA, I was supposed to speak at AHIMA in Atlanta. All of that got canceled. So the question would be like, what is that I needed to do to get myself out there? But I'm going to turn that question to you. Last year specifically with all of this stuff, and I see you create your YouTube channel, but even before the YouTube channel, you created that years ago. What made you decide to, and I think what I'm getting at is you've been leveraging a lot of video of you speaking, and the what's I'm going to make a comment about it is because when I watch you speak or even listen to you speak, and when I did the podcast with you, you have a certain, when you speak to somebody, it's like you're grabbing them, you're hugging them and you're bringing them in. Like, hey, I'm talking to you, even though I'm talking to nobody right now. But when the way you portray your message, the way you speak, it's like it engages you automatically. When you listen to it. Go ahead.
That means a lot, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly, I hope it comes across authentically because I mean it. I want to give you an example.
Sure.
We run these AAPC approved fast track courses, and it offers 35 CEUs. So I started these, and we meet on Saturday mornings. That's the way it was early in the year.
Yeah.
And I had a mom, and I won't obviously mention any names, but she is a single mom, a young woman, and she's a widow, and she has a son. She just sent me, so she passed her exam the first time with us. She sent me an email about 3 weeks ago, and I've asked her, I want her to come on. And she got a job interview. She had been doing billing, and I believe some light coding, but definitely billing. She got a job, Brian, and her salary increased $35,000.
Wow.
Can you imagine what that means for a single parent raising a young boy? I mean, that's life-changing. It changes the game.
Yeah.
And so and again, I'm going to say my Italian, is that the Sicilian in me? I don't know. But like I tell students, I'm like, your success is personal to me. My success, when I could not pass that exam and I couldn't figure out like, why am I not passing this? What is wrong with me? You have to step back and say, wait a minute, my instructors are doing the best that they can. It has to be my learning style. It has to be, so you take responsibility. I didn't say blame, but I did say responsibility. And so I want students to know, like, I'm going to help you, but you also have to give me your 100%. Yep. If I can do it, you absolutely can do it.
That's right.
And I do want them to know this is absolutely attainable. Be in a space where you can study well. Don't try to study at 8 o'clock at night after you've had a full day of working in kids. It's very difficult. So I do want to engage my students. And that's why our live classes, I believe, have the pass rate that it does, is because my instructors are trained that we don't leave a class without open forum. And that's when students talk back and forth with us all the time. I don't get this. We have our Facebook group. So if students don't have a question, if you have a question, pose it.
Good for you.
Let's work it out and say, okay, why did the patient leave the house? But everything is always coding guidelines and sequences. So the particular question that the student had, I said, go back to your coding conventions. What does it say about Sequelae? What does it say about the sequencing of Sequelae? So, I want them to know it is personal to me and their success. It's not just about, it's got to maintain integrity coding. No, you need to maintain your integrity. You need to know you've paid some hard-earned money here.
Right.
Let's get this done.
Yeah, you provide that accountability.
I do. Right? I absolutely do.
Not for you, but for the student. The student needs the student needs to have some form of accountability. They can't rely solely on the instructor to get them to where they need to go.
Right.
You would have to really, meet each other halfway. You're giving up to a certain point. I think, you mentioned Facebook groups, because I can't believe you started one. So yeah. That's good. I watched the, my Facebook groups and even other Facebook groups as well. It's like, when somebody fails, when somebody reaches at a point, I did this class, I did this certification, I did this, but it's not coming to me.
Mm.
It's like, okay, to me, it's like, okay, I feel they still haven't done enough,
Mm-hmm.
because if I tell them my story and compare it to theirs, it's still not enough.
You're right. You're right.
When you think about it. But I think, if if I had typed it on Facebook, it would have been a different story. It would have been an argument. But my personal opinion is like, okay, like you said, when you're talking about accountability, the instructor can only do so much. And I
Right.
think what you just mentioned is that you give accountability to the student, but you also empower the student to do more.
Right.
I've been doing YouTube videos on, I still have a lot about to talk about in regards to, I think, more on the student, the teacher, the university, the education institution. It's like, who's supposed to provide what,
Right.
and I'm glad you
Right.
mentioned this, because it's like, you can't rely on the instructor to do everything. The instructor is only, at least from an academia side, from an associate's level side, they're given the course, they're given the syllabus, they're given the materials, and they're given only a certain period of time, like 8 to 16 weeks. And you could only cram in so much within that time,
Yeah.
given that title of the course. And so when the instructor is doing as much as they can to give within that certain period of time, but then the student doesn't get enough, that's what's different. I think what you provide in your courses is what's missing. It's like you're not in a big time crunch. Hey everybody, if you are enjoying the podcast so far, please consider liking this video and also subscribing to the Not Elsewhere Classified podcast YouTube channel so you can be notified for future videos. Also, please check out the Medical Coding Geek YouTube channel, where I also post videos on the medical coding, CDI, and HIM community. Also, check out medicalcodinggeek.com, where we offer a lot of services, including our Facebook groups. You can go to medicalcodinggeek.com/services. Check out our Facebook groups, including Medical Coding Geeks, the RHIT and RHIA exam support group, the CDI network. We have a marketplace where you can sell and buy your books. We also have the CEU hit list. If you're interested in free CEUs, I release a monthly list of free CEUs that I find on the internet. Also, you could follow us on social media. Not Also Classified. Everything is at NEC Podcast. For Medical Coding Geek, it's at MED Coding Geek. You could find us on Facebook, Instagram, and we are also on TikTok. If you are listening to this episode, please make sure to subscribe and rate our show on Apple Podcasts. All the ratings and the reviews help our show get noticed. Also, I wanted to take a moment to promote our partners. You can check them out at medicalcodinggeek.com/partners. They include the Haugen Consulting Group, RadRx, Project Resume, Renowned Talent, and so much more. And of course, you can find me, Brian Cui. My last name is spelled CUI on LinkedIn. So without further ado, let's return back to the show, right? Because you're your own business. You're not.
I am.
You're not dictated by a university. You're not
No.
dictated by a dean to say, hey, you have to do it at this certain time, this certain
Right.
rate. And what I'm listening to, I'm going to link the last video to this video as well on the Not Also Classified podcast YouTube channel. What you'll hear is that, and you could explain, is she gives the core amount what you need, but then she also gives additional amount in order for you to walk away not feeling that you're not full, right? Like if
Yeah.
I love going to a Korean barbecue or a hot plate place, and I like to, when you spend the money, you want to walk away full. Right?
Yes.
That's the real idea of that. So I think you provide that for your students. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah. So I have to, and I'm being 100% as God is my witness, honest. I've made it a goal to never charge like these outrageous prices for coding. And if you want to discuss that further, we can. But
Sure.
What I have decided is if students need the basics with anatomy and physiology and medical terminology, we will offer that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you already know that, you don't need to spend the money for that.
Mm.
You can come to our fast track course.
Mm-hmm. Good.
But we do offer a comprehensive class, and I will talk back and forth with you, just like that student with the sequela. I wanted you, I always say, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger has these amazing muscles, but we have the same muscles.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, he's as a man, his muscles are going to be different.
Yeah.
But still, I have biceps, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have pectorals,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all how I develop it.
Right.
So you, as the coder and as the student, you have that ability.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to draw it out of you. I'm not going to say, okay, Brian, here you go. So I always say to students, when you go on your job, they're not going to say, all right, did I do A, B, C, or D? You circle. What do you think?
Mm-mm.
So I teach them, you pull out those keywords. What did they do? But I'm not going to spoon feed it to you. And we don't care at all, Brian. If students get questions wrong, we don't care if you get
That's
it wrong.
okay.
I care about you doing your homework.
That's right.
So I do keep a firm attendance policy and homework policy, because we don't charge those outrageous fees. We don't need to. We have the pass rate now that proves it. But what I do expect from you, you make sure, unless it's an outright emergency, we are in class. Years ago when I learned shorthand, that's what my teacher said to me. Do you know how you learn shorthand? By coming to class.
Mm-hmm.
And that just stuck with me. Do you know how you're going to learn coding? Coming time after time after time and doing that repetitive homework.
Yeah.
But I do feel that accountability is huge, because you're not taking me into your exam with you. But so often I hear students say, Miss Danita, I heard you in my head when I was in my exam. Why did the patient leave the house? And also too, like the tips that I give them and the steps that we have in our guide sheets.
Mm.
There's a rhyme and a reason and a logistics to pattern to coding.
Mm.
You just have to look at why are they setting it up like this? Look at it. In ICD-10, we're going to go generally head to toe. You're going to look at some of the codes. Look at the sequence and the way they set it up. Right, left, bilateral, unspecified, another pattern. So we give students these nutrients and say, okay, now you develop it. You build those muscles.
And so that falls into what I wanted to talk about is in the video, you said, show one, teach one, do one. So could you said you developed yourself, but I think I've heard it somewhere else. I don't know, on a radio station.
No, I didn't develop that saying, but I developed the motto.
The model, yes, right. But I've heard it. I've heard it though on a radio station one time. Show one, teach one, do one, or something like that. It has to do with but I think it also involved with sharing it as well. But because because you're the instructor and the student's a student, it only goes up to do one, because they're not able to share it unless they truly comprehend it, right? So could you explain that little phrase that you the model of teaching that you provide?
Yeah. So for example, I come from a background of dermatology, orthopedics, OBGYN, and some pediatrics. So I say, when we're talking about excisions, I'm going to say, so, a patient, when they come in, say we're talking about, they're having something removed, they don't know what it is. So we will refer, when they talk about our excision codes in integumentary, I said, okay, so when the patient comes in the office, look at these codes. We have excisions. They're based in body groupings, right? Trunk, arms, legs. Mm-hmm. And then they have, top of the bottom, bottom of the body, top of the body, bottom of the body. So I'm teaching you. Now I'm going to show you with a scenario. I'm going to give you an example of a patient that came in. They had something removed from their arm. If it was removed from their arm, you tell me, what body groupings would I be in, first of all? I'm not giving you dimensions yet. Oh, it's going to be this parent code. Exactly. And then when we do one, now we're going to pull a scenario. And I said, no, here's how they're going to ask you this on the exam. I put the scenario on the screen, or we're doing practice questions together. I said, I want you to tell me, where's the key words? Mm-hmm. We're going to look. It's a lesion. Is it benign or malignant? It's benign. So I teach them patterns. Well, see how the benign codes are set up? 114. See how malignant? 116. The higher the number, the higher the severity. So you want to be able to say, like, strategy wise, oh, it's benign. I'm going to be able to eliminate a 116 because my benigns are 114s. That's what I mean. Show one, teach one, do one. Cardiology, you know, Brian, that's the most challenging area, I think, for students. I know it was for me. And so because of that, and, you know, in my preparation for wanting more certifications, going over cardiology coding, you have no choice but to dig in. If you want to be a cardiology coder, it's not going to be questions 1, 2, 3. Was it a pacemaker or a defibrillator? Okay, no. And actually, one of the instructors that he's not with us right now, he took a little leave. He was so good. He's a cardiology coder. He passed the exam the first time after taking it with us. Awesome. He got a job as a cardiology coder, like right out the door.
Amazing.
Yeah, and he's just like, some students just gravitate to certain areas. Well, he gravitated to cardiology, and he was excellent. Nick, if you're listening, I can't wait to have you back again.
Come back, Nick.
Yeah, but cardiology is one of those things that, okay, well, we give show one and teaching one. I give the analogy like the trunk of a tree. Look at that, and I'm going there because my trees are right out there. Look at the trunk of a tree. There's your aorta, but it branches off. I have a ton of leaves on my trees, right? I have branches that branch off of branches. I said, think about your body like that. So there's the analogy of show one, teach one, do one. Yeah. When they can get a picture of in their head of a tree, because we're not physicians, but if you can get that picture in your head, you kind of feel like you're following them in your mind when they're maneuvering that catheter to the levels. It's very, very interesting. It's cool.
It is. And I spent 12 years at a healthcare organization that would, at least for my first couple of years, you know, you're talking about open heart, cardiac cath, what else? Intra-aortic balloon pumps, you know, all of those things. And the one thing that I've noticed in cardiology is congestive heart failure, coronary artery disease, myocardial infarctions. I mean, you know, I've seen them all. But you won't be able to understand it. The way I understand cardiology is there has to be a certain flow, right? Because when you think of the circulatory system, there's a flow. And you mentioned the aorta, you mentioned the branches, the peripheral branches. For me, it's always started at the 4 chambers of the heart. That's where you go. And then you kind of branch out from there because when you look at the aorta and all the peripherals, anything that happens, it's going to happen along the way, and you're able to identify that disease. And then because when you're able to identify the disease, then you'll be able to identify the procedure that goes with it, you know?
Right.
And so that's the way I look at it. And it's always, when I used to teach, I just draw one line and this line, right? Just like that. That's the 4 chambers. I didn't make an actual heart. I just went like this. Let's begin here. And they're like, what is that? That is the heart. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Let me
work with me.
Let me explain, because I'm not an artist, but I will make it. I will make it work. Yeah. And so when you go through the heart and then you go through the flow, then you add in the valves. Then you add in once you get to the left ventricle, then everything is it just flows right out, because once you go from
pun intended.
Exactly from the left ventricle then to the body, and then from there. I've always, when I used to teach CDI, you know, in terms of just clinical conditions, when you look at from the left ventricle, from there, everything else kind of falls into place in terms of teaching other things. And then you get into more of the hematology. You talk about, you know, oxygenation. From there, you get into acidity, basic acidity, metabolic acidosis, and then you get into more things like diabetes. Like, you know, once you start, to me, I've always liked to start here, because it allows you to teach other things that are related to it. You know, then
good point.
Because when you go from cardiology, then you get into vascular. From vascular, you get into PVD, then to gangrene, then to amputations, right? So it's like, so sad. I only go through, because I used to work in the same system in another hospital that's all they did was vascular procedures.
Yeah, yeah,
But I wouldn't have been able to understand it unless I had the cardiology first.
yeah.
Right.
And yeah. So when we talk about like selective and non-selective, I give the example. I say, like if I want to go to the mall, if I could just stay on Main Street, I'm on my main street of the aorta.
Yeah.
I am non-selective.
Yeah.
But for me, I can't do that. I have to branch off of this street to go to that street in order to get to the mall and get into
Right.
Lord and Taylor. I said, I want you to think of it that way. Every time I'm veering off a street, where did that catheter have to go?
Yeah.
Because you have to be skilled in that if you're going to bring in the proper revenue for your vascular surgeons. So if you keep it in the area where you can make it relatable, and then when students think like, wow, I could understand that. Of course you can understand that.
Yeah.
We have the ability to understand, and I'm not saying, we're not, well, why not? Why couldn't we be? Why couldn't we understand all of that? Why not? So we limit our own thinking by saying, we listen to those lies. Yeah, but I had this and I'm not smart. And, like I have students with challenges, but that doesn't mean you can't pass your exam. You learn different.
Right.
Don't we all?
Right. I just saw on Facebook somebody posted. I hate this when they posted like a vicious, the catch-22. You can't get experience unless you have a job. But you can't get a job unless you have an experience. And you bring in this certain mentality that I see a lot on Facebook with that. I mean, I should be talking about YouTube, but I might as well talking about here. But let me tell you what happened today, right? So today I woke up at 6:00 in the morning. I went to go pick up my wife. She's an ER nurse over in Orlando.
God bless them.
I had to go pick her up, right? And I'm like, did you take care of COVID patients? She says like, yeah. I said, okay, just. Right? Anyways, I get home, right? And I do about 2 to 3 hours of my full-time job because I still got to catch up. And then because my computer, I just told you my computer is on the fritz here. I'm like, okay, what do I do? And I go outside. There's a whole bunch of weeds in my wherever I put my mulch in. So, when you look at it though, and this is getting to my point, is I look at it every day and I'm like, gosh, that's so much, right? But unless you get in it and start somewhere, I said, okay, I'm going to start by my door. I'm going to get in a squat. I'm going to get my little pan and I'm going to pull them out one by one.
Yes.
And then eventually you get finished to one section. Then you finish another section. Then you finish another section.
Right.
And another section. Then you'll look back like, wow, this looks great. And it wasn't that bad.
Right. And too, the weeds can also represent those little lies in our head. If you don't pull that lie out and say, no, that's a lie. Yes, I can learn it. And you flick it back in the woods. No, yes, I can do this. Pull that weed up from the roots.
That's right. You got to pull them out. And so when you look at it, like I just explained it earlier, you in the 20-year run that I have, I mean, it's like I've had ups and downs. Who does have ups and downs, right? It's never a perfect, career. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, when you look back, and that's what I've been doing with a lot of people on this podcast, is let's take what you've done and it's kind of like, let's look back, crack a beer, look at it. I'm like, okay, what does that look like? And like, oh, that looks really great.
Yeah.
And so even for students, I just helped out another student. She is just getting into an HIT program and she had all of these negative thoughts. Like, I don't think I should be doing this YouTube thing. I don't know if I could do an interview for my assignment. I tried this.
I saw it. It was awesome.
Did you?
Yeah.
So here's an update, right? So I don't think I mentioned anywhere. I did in the last podcast, but she was so empowered with just that.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything just except for listen and give her my feedback. Right.
Yeah.
I just listened and gave her my feedback. She was very empowered. Like, gosh, that was so easy. I could just go to a professional and talk to them. I said, yes, you can.
Yeah.
do it again and do it
Right.
again and do it again.
Right.
And that's your career in networking, right?
Amen.
And so because of that, she was very empowered that she just decided to, I don't know, just apply to 20 positions, even though she couldn't get it. And then she just messaged me on LinkedIn. She said, "Hey, Brian." I said, "Yes, Norma. I found a job and they want me to interview." I'm like, "Okay, great. Go for it." And she's like, "Can you give me advice?" I think I already gave you advice. I think you already know what to do.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
treat it the same way like when you were
Right.
talking to me. Like,
Yeah.
don't feel like you are deficient.
Right. You got to fake it till you make it. You got to,
Yeah.
you go in there and you go in there with that suit on, and it doesn't, whatever is going on in here, you just don't let them see you sweat.
Yeah.
You go in there, you present yourself
That's right.
professionally.
Yeah, just professionally. And also, like, even though the position that she was applying for was very entry level, I told her, "Look, if you were interviewing with me, I want you to be straight up with me. Tell
Yeah.
me what you know, and also tell me what you don't know, right? I don't know this, but I am willing to do this. Give me an example that you were faced in a situation that you did not know, but you eventually learned." And so she kind of talked about her retail experience, like all of this and that. I said, also, make the other person laugh. If you could at least do that, if you can take control of the interview and make the person who's interviewing you comfortable, right? Then they'll see like, okay, that person's a really good person to work with. They could fit into, I guess, the employer's culture of what they need for that person. And so anyway, she interviewed, and then she called me back. I know she texted me back on LinkedIn. She says, "You know what? I got the job."
Oh my God.
I'm like, "What?"
Norma.
Like, yeah. So,
you rock.
so she's in the middle of her medical terminology course, right? So as we're talking here, she was in the middle of her medical terminology course. She has not even got into the HIT program for her associates yet. She's not certified, but yet but she landed a position in HIM.
And you know what that shows? That she's teachable.
Yes.
That shows perseverance. So, you never despise small beginnings, never. Because we all started off. I started off, even after my training, I started off as an ICU secretary.
Mm-hmm.
From there, I was able to get into transcription. So it's all those things, because in medical billing and medical coding is so intricately entwined. That's why we offer both of those. But you just get that foot in the door any way that you can. I mean, good for her. I hope students are listening to what this young woman did. She just went out there and just said, "Yeah, I'm going to fill out these applications." No, in the process of, but I can do it. I'm willing to do it. I'm teachable. Mm-hmm. Let me, and employers love that, because they can now take and shape and mold. This is the way we want it done. So that's awesome. I hope everybody hears that and follows that pattern.
Yeah, it empowered me to like, look, if for anybody that reaches out to me and asks me questions, I'm like, you know what? In order for me to answer that, you need to do this.
Yeah,
you need to do this.
Yeah.
Some people are like, I don't know. I'm like, you want the answer? You want to feel empowered? Get on here. And so far I have about maybe 2 people that want to do it, but I still haven't scheduled it yet. So it's like, let's get them over the heebie-jeebies. Like like, it's not that bad. And so as long as, I think what it is that, students and professionals, the students feel very intimidated. Like they think like, okay, they're going to make me feel small. I said, no. We need more people like yourself, right? We need more students. We need to bring them up. And so when you have that mentality of, that I'm here, this person's here, no, we're going to be on the same level. And the way I think is like, okay, I like to pay it forward, because you never know, one day you might be my boss.
MedicalCodingGeek.com